a year. And I want to see a soccer program at the Sherman Soccer Complex as long as possible.
Okay, in rebuttal, no one up here has said anything regarding the fact of canceling a soccer program. You just said thousands of kids play per year. How many thousands?
Hundreds of thousands.
Here?
Listen, if you want to argue, put a
I'm not
reasonable
arguing, I'm asking
argument
questions. You're asking for a resolution that makes some statement of something, and what you're doing is answering the people that are creating responses that we aren't making. You don't respond to people that create that kind of dogma. If you're gonna do anything, then communicate, which has been requested of this board on and on and on. Go tell the people what's real. Don't create motions and et cetera to answer people that are creating rumor. Inform the people.
This ought to inform them. Pam or Margaret, do you have any conversation?
I do want to say that this board has never, said that we would stop the soccer program. That's never been an issue for us. And we had asked the soccer team and the Little League football team to provide us with financial statements, which I don't think that's unreasonable. However, I do not want to get into a dogfight about the soccer team. We don't intend to stop it, so if we have to agree with this resolution, so be it.
I don't see any problem with the resolution. I think it'll ease some minds out there that are getting misinformation. I personally don't have to see anybody's financial statements. I didn't need to see the Christian Soccer Associations. I don't need to see the Gateway Soccer Association's financials. If that's not how we should decide as a board who uses the fields. I think that's the wrong approach. I'm not quite sure what significance the financials show. I've never really understood why they've been requested in the first place, but I have said it in previous meetings, I don't need to see the financials. As long as they can pay what we ask them to pay to rent the fields, that's all that counts.
Thank you.
Yeah. If a bully approaches you and a bully starts making misstatements of what you've stated and you back down to that bully, shame on you. The fact that this whole thing, let's go back in history. This whole thing was the idea of a guy by the name of Roger Sherman, who I met personally 8 years ago, before he sadly passed away. The whole idea of that, and the fact of the Christian Soccer Association and the fact of sharing their thing, was because Roger, who lived here, knew very well that we were going to be putting an awful lot of money of the residents, and residents who don't have kids that are involved in soccer, and people that aren't even residents that are involved. And you've got one guy here that's profitizing on it, but back to Roger, Roger didn't make a profit in any way, shape, or form. Neither did the Christian Soccer Association in any way, shape, or form. And they wanted the community to know that they were more than willing to share their financials with us. And how Margaret can forget that, I can't imagine, because she was here at that time. In fact, started like me at that time. This gentleman that's come in to utilize thousands of kids regarding this, how many of those kids are even from Gateway? And again, we're talking about spending $70,000+ on lights, and we represent all of the people that are out there, including the people that don't have kids in the program, and including the people that do. And if somebody is starting bad rumors, then again, shame on us for not communicating back to the community. If anything, if you want to draw something up, draw up a letter that's signed by all of the supervisors, put it on the website, and tell the public what the reality is, not what this gentleman's reality apparently is, which I'm deducting from what you're saying that I don't know about what this guy's talking about. Frankly, if that's the way it's being stated, I maybe don't want to know what he's talking about. But we should state, we're the ones that are the stewards of all of the monies for these people. We're the ones that are spending, right now, what, in our meeting book today, over $11,000 to handle the nematodes? We aren't fighting that. And to let this person use that as a tactic, and then to turn around and draft a resolution, you're just falling into that. Where this started was something that was for the community and for the kids. It's drifted away from that. Also, sadly, it was stuff that wasn't maintained as it properly should have been maintained. And now we're the ones that are having to pick up a lot of that. Having said that, I still don't think you draft this thing as an answer to somebody that's spreading incorrect statements. You instead communicate with the people that we serve, tell them what we're doing, talk about the things and monies that we're spending about. I've said for 8 years, we don't communicate enough. We don't communicate enough with the people that have got lake bank problems. We need to communicate, not draft resolutions.
Are you quite finished?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say one thing in response to Gary. I remember quite well how the Christian Soccer Association was badgered until they did provide their financials, and then they were picked apart by more than one of the supervisors that served at the time. And I thought it was inappropriate at the time, and I don't want to go down that road again. That's just my comment.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just as this has been added on as an action item, I would suggest that the chair open it to the public, whether anybody in the public wants to sign up to speak on this topic, since it was not on the agenda, but it is an action item.
Correct.
Anyone in the audience want to speak about the continuance or discontinuance of the soccer association? Name and address, please.
Judy, Eagle Point Circle. My last name is Peak. Just in regard, I don't know anything about it, but the lesser of the two evils to me is if you're taking kids and putting them in an activity rather than being somewhere they don't need to be, it's a great consideration for me. I don't have grandchildren there. I don't have any children there. But I have worked with children all my life. And I would just think it would be the greater evil to take something apart that you would dismantle piece by piece, and children would stray in this way and that way and whatever way. And please take that into consideration.
Well, let me respond to that. Where did you hear that we were doing that? Are you talking about what we just have been discussing here? You took away from that discussion that we have in any way, shape, or form, and you sit in on an awful lot of meetings. When did we ever say that we were going to take this and we were no longer going to have this?
I didn't say that. I said if.
We haven't stopped thinking about kids. How did you do?
Well, I didn't say that you did. I said if it was taken away, or if, and I think you missed the if, but for me, it would be a great disservice to think that children would be, and you see them straying everywhere. So if that happened, and I'm not saying it's going to come to that, I'm just saying once you start picking things apart, things start falling apart, historically, So that's just my 2 cents worth. I mean, for what it's worth.
Thank you very much. Any others? Vote on the resolution. All in favor say aye. Aye.
I did want to
Pam had
say
one thing
one
she
other
wanted to
thing.
say, sorry.
I'm sorry. I do think that the issue here is more of how to communicate against what's been said against the board. I understand I think I understand what Gary is saying, that maybe it would be better to put something on the site saying that that was never a consideration of the board to shut down the soccer field. We've never talked about shutting down the soccer field. So, in a way, having this resolution kind of gives this thing legs on something that we've never talked about. We've never said that we were going to shut down the soccer field. And I think we should let the people know that that was never a consideration for the board. And I guess what I'm trying to understand is what is the best way to get that message forward to the community?
I appreciate that comment, and I think that this is a very good way to get that message to the community. Just like we got the message to the community by a vote of this board when the word was going out that we were gonna make all kinds of changes in the Gateway pool. Here's another one that is creeping up on us little by little, and we are in fact threatening the Gateway Soccer Association. If they don't do certain things, they're not gonna have a contract after June the 30th. Now, that to me is a threat. It's a threat to the soccer association. It's a threat to the students and participants, the players, and the parents. And I, for one, think now is the time to put an end to it.
When a person makes a threat, you don't, and the statement that they're making is grossly, egregiously false, you don't create a resolution. You communicate, and that's the problem that we've had for 8 years that I've been here. I can't comment before, but I have the right to comment now. Draft something and communicate to the public.
This is communicating to the public.
This is the wrong way to communicate to the public.
Do you think the right way is to tell the soccer association that they're not gonna have a contract unless they bend?
Who said that? You just said it, Bill, and it's been misconstrued by the lady right here standing at the podium. The pick
Mr.
off-
Senior said it, and I think you backed it up.
Bill, you're way out of base, and if you wanna take your position and use your position to draft a letter to the community, then go do it. But don't start throwing around resolutions like, now the community's gonna understand. No, they don't. The young lady out there didn't understand. It's not gonna be understood until you communicate in a public venue, whether it be the website, take a page in the corridor, whatever. Start communicating to the people. It's the same thing that draws the what's happening with the lakes and this recent thing that happened about the lake banks. We're not communicating, so people can draw their own conclusions.
Are we ready to vote on them?
Could, I think that in issues getting confused, they're really can accomplish both objectives. Go ahead and pull something like Supervisor Neubauer has suggested, but the way I interpret your resolution that's been presented tonight is that you just want to take this off your agenda. You're wasting, or not wasting, but you're putting a lot of time into it, and you just want to go forward on more critical issues that the community's confronted with, and so this isn't going to be discussed anymore. But the reaction to the rumors and innuendos could be communicated in an article on the website.
Thank you very much.
Could we
We can do
make an
both,
adjustment
right?
to that? And it's just the word, I'll let it go because it's just not worth putting a lot of time in, because we've never said this, and this is almost an admission of guilt of something that we've never done. That is my issue. If the wording was different, I wouldn't have any problem with it. But we've never said that we would set the soccer fields now. And
And you're right, and why resolve something? This isn't a resolution type situation, and if Cal's thing is that, well, we don't have time to talk about it, yeah, we do. We've always got time for it. We need to make time for this. We need the community to know that we'll make time for it. We need the community to know that, no, that isn't it. And if somebody is out there churning these kinds of rumors, then we go back with communication, which, sorry, we should have communicated before that. Well, we didn't. We start. If you want to make a resolution, make the resolution that it's about doggone time to start communicating what we're doing here to the people that we serve. Now, that's a resolution I'll support.
I think we've had enough conversation about it. All in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3-1. Thank you very much.
I do think that it'd be nice if we, and it's probably coming from you, the chairman, some sort of a letter that we can post on the website would be a nice idea. We'll just throw that out there.
I think that's a great idea, and I will be happy to do that. But from the conversations that we've had on this issue in the last 6 months, I think that anything that I write is going to be edited and re-edited and re-edited. But I will give it my best shot. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for public participation. Mr. Manager, do we have folks that would like to speak to the board?
Yes,
about the
sir. We
agenda?
have two, and Kathy Flaherty, and she'd like to talk about the pool.
Kathy Flaherty, 12566 Stony Brook. No, Stony, yeah. This is actually, this is a puzzle. I'm hoping that you can solve this puzzle. A resident came to me, and they go to water aerobics, and they have their card, but they have to sign in and their address. And the gentleman who's there stops the water aerobics if they don't sign in. Now, she went in the afternoon and just used her card to get in. She's wondering, she's not here right now, she moved back, went up north. She's wondering why she has to do two different things, it's not consistent. Why would she have to sign in if she has a card? So that's a puzzle.
Is she signing in for the class since it's
Why do they
water
have, she
aerobics?
wants to know, why do they have to sign in for the class if they have a card? All the person needs is the number that's there.
I'm guessing, I'm just guessing that they want to know who's actually attending the water aerobics class.
I don't know, that's the puzzle.
That's just,
She asked me to text her your answer.
I think we need a lot more facts than you. than
That's
we've
all
got
I
here.
know.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager, any others?
Yes, sir. Bob Geppert, and 3 questions, Lake 20, Lake 28, and then damage to pipe or drainage pipe cleaning.
I'll defer that till he comes to the consent.
That's it, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, a public hearing has been advertised to consider the adoption of amendments to our rules of procedure concerning competitive solicitation to provide that the district may pre-qualify persons, contractors, or entities and instances involved in maintenance services for any district facility or project. I am hereby declaring that this public hearing is open, and I would invite members of the audience first, and then board members, to make any comments they would like pertaining to the subject of this public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before there any participation by the public or by the board?
I thought I did that just perfect. I did.
Yes, sir, you did, that was excellent. I thought- But if I may, also just for the record, as reflected in the memorandum in the agenda packet, are the affidavits of publication of the notice of rule development and the affidavit of publication of the notice of today's public hearing. And I just want to confirm with Cal and April that no inquiries have been made of the district staff for copies, and no one's asked for a statement of regulatory cost or requested to provide an estimate of regulatory costs.
Well, thank you very
Yes, sir.
much.
And a couple other comments, if I may. I had some proposed, I have a revised document that if I can hand out to the board, I folded it to the page with some possible further revised language. that has been suggested to be added, which I think would be helpful, and members of the public want to have copies. I have them available for members of the public also. And I've noted it on the third page, or fourth page, with a little arrow, the additional proposed revised language.
Who inserted this?
The chairman and I had a conversation, and I inserted that after having that discussion. I think it's a positive insertion. And once again, it's a board's policy decision as to whether they wish to adopt the proposed amendment as provided, as proposed and revised, or any further changes or suggestions to the proposed language. And Mr. Manager or Mr. Chairman, we have some comments, I think were provided by Mr. Senior in a memorandum. I don't know if we all have that. If the board
It
members-
was forwarded to the board.
Okay.
But I also suggest, in light of communication, that you put it right now on public record why we're doing this, so that it's not misconstrued by anybody.
I
Yes.
think that's a very excellent idea.
And
Excellent.
it also becomes part of the minutes,
I think it's a very good
What
idea.
become part of the minutes?
your dissertation,
Oh, my coming dissertation.
dissert on.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience and of the board, whenever the board deems it necessary to amend its rules, it has to do so after advertising, and give the audience as well as the board members a chance to comment upon the proposed changes. This change is one that would allow the board and its management to pre-qualify bidders, so that instead of waiting until a few weeks before a contract has to be let and work begin, that we scour the county and even the part of the state to find competent bidders who, once we have the specifications put together, can bid on this contract. While we were talking about it earlier, it was brought to our attention that very few bidders read the legal notices in the newspaper, although they are still required by law. Instead of that, many of the bidders refer to an electronic service that provides a database of those items that are going to be up for bid. So this amendment to the amendment, if you will, is one that would allow the management and the board, if they deem it necessary, to not only advertise in a newspaper of general circulation, but also to advertise this on an electronic database. Mr. Manager, have I said that about right? Sir?
Very well said, yes, sir.
The only thing that I would also want you to specify is your new portion here. Since we have a district manager who would be making the decisions on who to hire, that there should be a proviso that indicates the fact that they can't be associated with his company.
Are you asking that we go ahead and read section 7 and A's through H? Is that?
Well, this further revised here, Bill,
Uh-huh.
which gives that gentleman over there, as handsome as he is, the capability of hiring anybody that happens to be associated with Severn Trent. So we want our constituents to know that we're not trying to have something that could be a conflict of interest.
That's exactly right. What precisely would you like to have
Whatever.
in?
Communicate, sir.
Yeah, if I may step in briefly. From the perspective of the additional language that says further revised, those are third-party vendors that provide that service. Demand Star, OnVR, there's some other services out there where you subscribe to it and you receive push notifications or electronic updates, and it goes to a third-party vendor. It doesn't, it's called Demand Star, it's a big company. And from the perspective of the conflict of interest, I understand because of the statutory scheme that's out there that provides need to be careful on that. I would, I'm not sure how to draft it, incorporate it
Well,
in
I
this.
know
bill
that
right now.
this gentleman who is conspicuously absent had, in some time meetings before, discussed the fact that Severn Trent was using their own contractors involved with the new meter installations, and we were having some problems with them. I wouldn't like to have a repeat of that, and I don't think any of us would. And that, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Public,
Say again, say that.
that's
part.
something that the entire board agrees upon, that we're here to make sure that we provide them with the best services possible.
What I was-
Honest, upfront, cost-effective, et cetera, et cetera.
No conflict of interest, et cetera, et cetera.
The way I understood the suggested revision that the attorney has prepared, this would not supersede any legal obligations or restrictions. No rule can create or override legal implications, and the
State law,
attorney.
you mean?
That's
Right.
correct, and I was just thinking, and what, it does not hurt, though, if you want to add a sentence in the, and once again, the only portion of the rules that's up for amendment is section A-1.06. So if we are to add language in there, it can be inserted, just generally, I'll call it in the scope, or a catch-all language at the end with regards to that, the provisions of chapter 112 for our statutes that deals with conflict of interest shall be complied with. And I can, and I can add that under a contract manager, because it says the board may designate a representative to function as a contract manager who's responsible. So with the board's indulgence, if the board is inclined at the end of the public hearing to adopt this proposed amendment to section A-1.06 as presented and further revised with regards to the electronic notification process, I can also add language to section A-1.06F that says all actions shall be governed by and consistent with the Florida Code of Ethics, Chapter 112 Florida statutes.
Yep.
And I'm comfortable because that provides for the situation by virtue of an amendment a few years ago, that district managers are now subject to that in certain circumstances.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, if there are no other comments from the audience, I'd like to invite board members to make any comments about this change in the rules.
I don't have any comment.
No? All right, hearing no comments I declare this public hearing on these rules closed, and we'll entertain a motion to adopt the amendments to the rules of procedure.
I just have one quick question. The comments that were submitted in writing, Mr. Neubauer had made reference to from Mr. Senior. Are they okay to just be attached to part of the minutes, Tony?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it'd be, to be included in the minutes, so, yeah, as opposed to reading them out loud, in other words.
Right.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
I make a motion to adopt.
This is with,
With Tony's
With Tony's-
insertion
The
of
two further revisions, the one that's handed out today, as well as the
yeah,
additional
just
provision
make
today.
sure that that's specified.
Yes, sir.
in your
With the
statement.
revision.
Second.
Motion and a second. With all of the amendments discussed, either provided by our attorney or discussed today. All in
Okay.
favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The next thing I have on my agenda is a presentation by Mr. Bill Pricey of Landscape Architects, Inc. Mr. Pricey, I believe.
Mr.
that must
Pricey is
be-
here.
That must be you. Can you give us just a 1-minute overview of who you are, about your firm, and what you intend to tell us today?
Oh, in that respect, I'm Bill Pricey with Land Architects. I've been hired by this board to conduct your roadway master plan. And basically here today to discuss the proposals that I put forth based on some of the information that was garnered during that presentation and some of the limitations that the then district manager, Scott Connell, had placed on me. And that's what broke this down into basically two different agreements. One was based on a budget, and the other one was based on a fuller, broader scope. So that's kind of what I'm here to present to you guys for your decision.
Thank you. Please proceed.
I'm going to trust that you guys have gotten that information on these two proposals here, and basically, I guess the easiest thing for me to do would be to break down the differences and the nuances between the two. And just to preface where I'm going with this, whichever direction you guys choose to take, we're prepared to execute one way or the other.
Yes, this is it. Thank you very much.
Okay, of the two proposals, one is based on a limited budget of $25,000 that was allocated for this fiscal year. The other proposal is based on a broader scope, looking at the holistic nature of the master plan and the ability to bring in public participation and to conduct workshops in that effect. And in doing so, that takes a little longer and of course costs a little more to execute on our part. And part and parcel in that larger proposal and scope of work is the level of graphics that it would take to convey and communicate that information in a public format. In the lesser version, there's not as much graphics, therefore there's not as much time, and there's not as much product involved, and it can be executed at a lesser cost. One of the other differences is that in doing so, in doing that, the public presentations are more presentations. They're limited in conveying information, and in the full scope, they are full-blown workshops that are more unlimited in time, give more opportunity for a discourse and feedback to get pros and cons from the community and implement it into that master plan. Part of the other aspect of that is also that we could put information in a website form, either in a standalone or as a additional page onto yours that helps convey that information out to the public. Because one of the ways of looking at the fuller scope is really is that public outreach, getting a buy-in, getting people involved in it. That way people don't seem as surprised that when they come up with a master plan that I may not like that. So it's a little more of an involved process in that regard. And just to sum up the two, the way they are structured, the budgeted version, of course, is based on the amount of money you've allocated for this fiscal year. The full version has been broken down that we can execute the first two tasks based on that allocated budget, and allowing for the second portion, which is the more involved final master plan version, would be done in the next fiscal cycle, so that you could allocate more funds for the difference in those proposals. So I think that's about the cleanest and most wordless, or the least amount of words to sum that up.
Thank you. Please stay at the podium, and I'd like to invite the board members to ask questions of you. Margaret, would you like to start?
No.
Dan? No? Gary?
Bill, may I call you Bill?
You may.
Thank you.
You may call him Gary.
May I call you Gary?
Darn straight, at least to my face. From what I understand from Rod's input, he's very pro on you because of the fact that you do and this is a question, a virtual type of situation as far as the presentation of your design, is that true?
We call it virtual design, and it's more of a three-dimensional presentation of the design elements. And that's really kind of what we're alluding to, is that does take a little more of an involved process to do
Okay.
that.
Having said that, is that in your estimates, guesstimates?
That's in the full version. In the limited version, what I call the budgeted version, you'd get one per segment, one on the three primary segments. And also in the full version, we include some of the additional segments that Ellen Scott had talked about when we were in contract negotiations. That's to include the common areas along Daniels, the medians on West Links, and the main entry feature on Gateway Boulevard.
So the difference between the budget version and the non-budget version is how many virtuals?
Yeah, there would be, there's 6 segments in the full version with maximum of 3. I think it was 3 each, so they give you 18 versus 1 each on 3. So it's
18 versus 6
so you're, no, 18 versus 3.
versus 3.
So you're getting 6 times as many.
And from the best of your recollection, the difference in cost for 18 versus 3 is going to be,
That-
at the best price that you're gonna give my mother will be,
I'm telling you, this is, even as the firm principal, I'm even nervous
should.
presenting this,
Go
because
ahead.
it's, sometimes you look at projects like this, and you go, yeah, how am I gonna survive that one? But
I
I
understand.
really have fine-tuned this down, and it's my job as the project manager and a firm principal to make sure we do it effectively and
Looks like
efficiently.
you have broad shoulders, Bill. Keep going.
The difference between that, I think, is about, I'm gonna have to be very specific on that one. That master plan is, final master plan is 8750, and in the budgeted one, I believe it is about 3,500, so it's about $5,000 more.
$5,000 for an additional 15.
The final master plan is, well, let me back up. It's, in the budgeted version, the final master plan is 14.5. I should have these numbers ingrained in my head.
Where do I find 14.5?
That's in the, if you look in category number 3, that's where we define that final master plan portion.
So
And in the broader version, it is 24.3,
So the difference in cost of the two is
about $10,000.
$10,000 for another 15 videos. So we're talking about $70 a video?
Or their images.
Though, well, they're digital.
Yes,
Correct.
correct.
And we would be able then, included in those prices, to be able to put it on our district website so that we could better communicate.
That's the beauty of the digital graphics, is you can put them on websites, you can send them in emails.
Okay? Is there anything else for that quantity of money other than the virtuals that we're getting for that?
You're also getting a more detailed cost estimate on our part, plus you're getting management plan recommendations on our part,
Okay.
which in talking with Scott was an important, and it with Elle was really getting, what we're presenting as your professional is trying to bring the management aspects together, because it's real important we find out what your issues are and convey that into the final product.
And we could, through that, convey that through the website also to the people we serve.
Yes.
Good answer, Bill. I know Pam's
Well,
going crazy now.
I just wanted to ask one
No,
question while you were.
go fire away.
Is that the full version, or is that just when you gave him the price? Was that the full version versus the budgeted version
Of,
of what we would get? You
I'm-
said
I'm
one
not-
was 33, what,
I'm not sure I understand
14.5
your
is
question.
24.3.
Category 3.
just for,
So you're looking at 15.3 on what's currently budgeted versus 33 something.
Yeah, that's when you put the two tasks
33,
together.
50 for category 3.
Basically, it's 3, 2, and 0. Yeah, you're putting the final task of putting that master plan together.
okay.
That's where that difference is. But you're dealing with twice as many road segments, you're dealing with 6 times as many images, and you're dealing with website coordination and management plans that aren't associated with the lesser version. So
Okay.
that's where
So there is-
that's where the distinction in cost is, because there is a
Okay.
totally different level of service on those two.
And Pam just asked April if that's doable, April.
Is that doable, April?
You mean in the budget?
Yes.
The way that I understand it, there was 25,000 in this year, and he's talking about spreading it over
Next, the
to do the full 58,000, 850. What is that, the extra $33,000 will be coming out of next year's budget.
And Pam also asks, is that compatible with our website system, that it would be very easily synergistic?
Why are you guys looking at me?
Well,
I'm just trying to bring you out, Pam.
Thinking.
Was any of this to come out of road turnover?
No.
Totally different.
Just wanted, just to ask the question.
So how does that work with next year's budget, or do we know anything about, we don't know?
We have to make sure that we include it in there.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a commitment and it would be funded
That's true.
or included.
You are committing to additional funds for the following fiscal year.
Stephen's not here.
If you so choose to go
Like
on
you
with
said,
those additional
What's
funds.
our cash position?
At the moment, we've got plenty of cash.
I just wanted to hear from Stephen, that's all. I thought I'd put it in the record.
You think Stephen
Well,
is listening?
Yeah.
what Stephen's gonna tell you is you have plenty
I
of
would.
cash based on your
Okay.
priorities.
Well, sure.
You don't have plenty of cash to cover everything in your capital improvement plan, because you're looking at outside funding. But you can
Outside-
shift things, and if this becomes a priority, then we just have to take from somewhere else.
But we'll have to deal with that during the budgeting meetings.
Correct.
Mhm.
Anything else for Bill?
No, I have
Hey,
nothing.
Cal, is Stephen watching? By any chance?
I don't know, I could give him a call if you want. He might be.
You'll get the message.
Whatever.
Thank you, Bill, very much.
You're welcome.
We will be in touch, you can bet on that. Next item on the discussion is new playground equipment at the pool. And since I saw a sign on our front door as we came in that the old equipment is being demolished and removed, seems like that decision has already been made.
Right there. Hopefully it's in the book.
Yeah,
Or B.
here you go, just use mine. So this is, you've got, put this up. But there's several different options. The problem is the equipment at the pool is in a unsafe condition and has been closed for a couple months.
I know that, it was
So
out.
it's
and I-
starting to be
and I
tore down
saw
now.
it, and I'm very surprised and almost disappointed that it can't be refurbished, but.
That was a
apparently
strong
the-
consideration, and it just, it couldn't because of the pipe, the metal had deteriorated to a point that, according to everyone we spoke to, it couldn't be refurbished.
When I was out, examining that, pool equipment, I was told by several mothers, I think they were, that were out there, that the kids were very disappointed to find out that that is closed and that they can't, enjoy it, so,
So they weren't supposed to be enjoying it now, because like you say, it's been closed for a couple months because it is a health and safety issue.
I meant to say that the mothers told me that the student, that their children are disappointed that they are
It's
not
not
able to
available,
use it.
yes. And it's something, both April and Scott received a lot of calls on. I'm sure that Anthony and Elle also. It is used a lot by the parents, as you say, Mr. Chairman, and that's why some options have been presented. I know Mr. Senior has asked if we couldn't use county funding. Unfortunately, this is repair and maintenance, and those funds aren't available for this type of activity. So, you want?
April, I looked over these two proposals that you have in here, and honestly, I noticed there's quite a bit of difference in the two, but I'm unable to tell much by just looking at the.
Right,
the
so-
photos. Can you help me a little bit?
April White, your operations manager. What we did here to consider the new playground is we're just looking for some direction for you, and we had, the staff had kind of went out and got some rough proposals, and these are two separate proposals. One includes a cover, one I think is completely 100% recycled plastic. So I just wanted to, for you to be able to get an idea of the type of funds that we're talking about to make this type of commitment. And that because it's in the pool area and it's on the large 7.5 have acres that we haven't fully developed. I wanted to know what your concerns and considerations were and kind of what direction you wanted staff to take. Do we look at replacing a similar structure like the two ideas that I've presented here, or do we want to research a wet zone because it's a pool area? You know, the different types of things that you might want to consider as we pursue this, so we have an idea of what to bring back to you for approval.
Thank you. Stay right there, please.
Okay.
Members of the board?
Yeah.
Questions, thoughts, statements, anything?
Yeah,
Anyone?
educate me, when you say wet zone,
I-
what would the difference be?
The way that I understand it, I think Lakes Park has one big flat surface, water's popping up out of the ground, a lot of plumbing, probably a higher maintenance expense. So we're trying to prepare as we plan this, because this is a long planning process. It's not a simple purchase. The way that I understand it is the play structure that is there, it will be better out of sight because it's just too tempting for children right now. It's causing some ruckus at the pool because they can't play with it. But it's gonna be gone for a long time, because this is gonna be a big project. I would like us to maybe staff to contact Lee County and look at some of their park structures, possibly see if they have any pool activities at their pool locations, and try to research something so we're certain that it's going to fit the community and what we want to do there with that area. But I didn't know if it was something, because I don't know where we are with our planning phase. I didn't know if it was something, if we had ideas for the property as a whole, or if we want to go ahead and try to get a play activity center replaced. I'm not sure, so I'm just looking for your feedback and direction.
Please.
Are you ready for this?
You have this look on your
Well,
face like you.
Well, before,
Well,
you know, you're getting
wait.
ready to go into a big spiel, I just want to ask a couple of questions. So if we just replace this equipment, the simple plan,
Mhm.
what is the time period for that?
That I am not aware of yet. I know with what little I have heard about this process is that the playground equipment, it does have a long order period. I know, I think just the slide was a several-week waiting period. And so we'd really have to do some planning, and if it's a priority, then we'll start right away. But I do think it's a long-term planning phase to make sure that we select something that's appropriate for our pool area.
When you say long-term, you mean longer than next week, obviously, longer than next month, probably, 2 or 3, 4 months? you think?
With the resources that we have and the networking that I think that we should probably do in considering a large purchase like this, because there's safety issues involved and there's maintenance issues involved, we need to make sure that we are better prepared for maintaining the equipment, and because it's next to the pool, it needs to be a certain type of material, or it's just, it's just rusting away. I mean, I'm looking at, I think several months is reality here for us to put something like this together with everything else going on. And I think once I get staff moving in the right direction and some momentum and, maybe networking with some Lee County folks, and some of the local municipalities so we can see what they're doing, I can kind of send them off and get some proposals, but we kind of wanted to get that direction first.
But, and I think the question was if it's not a land use or a change in the venue that's there, just replace what you've got so that it can be used as quickly as possible.
I'm still thinking that it's still, that either path we choose, it's going to be a few months. I think we would be doing a disservice if we set ourselves to a more constrained time frame.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, please.
Thank you, I'm done.
Okay. I have the budget behind me, but my recollection is there's nothing in our budget to cover this. Does anyone feel differently?
I believe, I'm thinking that there is nothing in the budget for this. And I'm not even sure if I saw it in the CIP. So, which is another consideration, you know, if it's not there. I mean, I don't know when this came about. I don't have the complete history of when this came about.
May I?
Please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
How old is this equipment?
I believe it was purchased in 2006.
This one is 2006? Because we had replaced one already that had been let go, and there is basically no plan of maintenance of these pieces of equipment. We had a situation before where it rusted there at the pool, and we had to go, and I thought we had replaced it because it had been left go and it virtually rusted out. This was again part of the transition period between another personnel person, etc. And we're back to the same issue again. First of all, we've got to establish, you and I had a brief discussion the other day, and you want the board to establish policy. I would suggest the first thing we've got to do is, especially since we now have a new staff member that's supposedly, I thought, responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep of all of this stuff associated with Parks, Rec, etc., that become part of their job description and part of their definite responsibility. If in fact the ops manager needs us to establish all of these policies, then I think we need to do that before we ever spend more money on putting in something new, because then it's not going to be maintained, apparently, if we haven't established that policy. So that's one of the items that would have to be done to be able to assist April. Having said that, to put in things with supports that are rust type, that are going to go into the ground, to me seems kind of crazy. There's all kinds of things such as galvanized steel with tubes and concrete inserts and etc. that could be a better longevity type situation. Even PVC supports, again, filled with concrete, much longer, etc. But it still has to come back to the origin of the fact that we have a staff member with a backup support person whose regular responsibility is to inspect it, fix all that stuff, you know, start with the minor rust, kind of like cleaning your teeth, you know, before the extraction occurs. We haven't done that in 8 years. So we need to establish that policy, apparently, since that's the way the management protocol works, and then got to figure out what the long-term game plan is going to be for where we're going to stick this stuff. And I think we also ought to run back to the playground over here, or Fun Park, or whatever we're going to call it, its name, and there should be an evaluation of all of that equipment immediately to figure out next. And last but not least, we should contact the fabulous Stephen and find out just what monies are available for this, because frankly, I would have expected you to know that.
And I was thinking that I looked at the CIP for this, but I apologize, and I'm not sure that I
Right,
did.
There's nothing in the CIP. There is 30,000 in the operating budget for R&M, and this is a replacement, even though it would qualify as a capital expenditure. And for, to date, I was gonna look and see how much we've spent.
Now, what's our average R&M for parks?
Well, hasn't been very,
And then if we go year to date, which is good, then we'll figure out what we've got real quickly.
let me just get,
Did we come up with a date for our strategy session?
we sent out a questionnaire asking which Saturday people would have available. The 16th doesn't work. And, you know, I was hoping that we could discuss that a little bit today.
Okay.
Let's see.
I don't think this is something that we need to hold up. We're not gonna make any decisions
No.
today, are you think?
Okay,
No.
so we are looking at long-term, we're in agreement with that we need to
9,000.
plan this out, be thorough,
You spent
because.
9,000, so you've got-
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, possibly recognizing that the Lee County Parks impact fees, as Cal mentioned, appropriately so, are not available for maintenance, repair, or replacement per se. If, however, possibly, if we can articulate with some good empirical data that between 2006 and 2016, that due to the population increases in Gateway and the increased utilization or additional equipment necessary to handle additional, children, because that's, the idea of impact fees are to pay for infrastructure attributable to new growth and new demands, not replace, prior facilities just because you're replacing them. If there's a way maybe to articulate that, Cal, maybe try to
Sure.
have conversations with Lee County, say, listen, 2006, the recession started, 2006, 2007. 2013, we started coming out of it, our population went zoom.
And that's some of the discussions we've had.
Oh,
is
okay, I didn't
how
know
can
that.
we package this to where it would qualify as
At least a
being
portion of it
eligible?
maybe,
At
like
least a portion
expanded
of it.
facilities to accommodate
Yeah.
the increased demand.
If, as April had mentioned, the wet zones, that's an entirely new activity, and that certainly would be. But, if we could discuss this during the workshop, then, maybe we could go from there. Find out exactly what the board would like to have done with that site, and.
You've
if-
gotta give us some recommendations. We
We can
can't
do that.
come up with this, out of whole cloth. You've gotta tell us what you think makes sense to you as professionals.
Okay.
So I think that simultaneously, we can start on what type of maintenance plan, when you come back with that, how you intend to maintain it.
Okay, I have down the maintenance program, because also that's going to be, with a lot of the activity going on in the district right now, a lot of landscaping is being conveyed to us, and the maintenance responsibilities, and that'll be important, important part of the budget process this year.
Okay.
Okay, for now, okay. Board will stand in recess for 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to pop out that word. Sometimes it just bees that way. Are we off air?
Uh,
A meeting.
No. Can you hit the stop?
Now we're off air.
Thank
He
you.
mentioned today, he's using the carpet person today.
I always ask
Well,
now.
I never argue with a lady with shamrocks in her eyes, so.
Provide to do quote-unquote accurate measurements, which
So the
is-
workshop has to be on the
It
Saturday?
doesn't have to be, it's just, we had such a hard time finding a date previously that everyone had made. I mean, we can try
We may end
a.
up repiping our whole house, just make it easy. This guy did a nice job, tiles, drywall, baseboard.
I can't do anything the first Saturday of the month.
$525. Did a great job.
He did well.
Well, after the plumbers had to come in and pick up the tiles when they found it.
But Saturday's not out of the question.
I prefer it to be.
That's gonna be done and be done.
What?
Had to jack in through the concrete slab.
They did, huh?
Yeah.
This
So they
is
took the-
beyond
that-
Yeah.
And then the-
Provide
the
saw and-
meetings down there.
Yeah, well, they took about 4 or 5 tiles
Okay.
out and they
Budget done.
leak detecting.
And then we had 30,000.
I'll give you the names never used. They're 4 feet long.
And it's been
So they only cost like $500 to do the plumbing repair work, which wasn't bad.
No.
Considering he had to dig in 3 spots.
For sure.
I know.
I had excess tile, I'd go, which accuses me of being a hoarder, Came in handy. The alternative was a map of the US.
Extremely.
Yeah, that was the alternative, I said, if the alternative was a map of the United States in the hallway.
Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
One gigantic Costello.
Yeah. So I had like 3 little, maybe about 20 tiles up over, and the ground, I saved the
So
ground.
the ninth you'd be available.
But anyways, so that cost about $500.
The second is the first thing.
Repair the drywall.
Because they'll get noise
Yeah, I
complaints.
believe.
Drywall,
They-
baseboard,
someone,
shot.
they-
Yes, and so drywall on two sides.
I mean, and I just think that this will make everybody so efficient on time, and if we could take
The other side,
morning,
our house is always
really dedicated
plaster
to
walls.
It's true,
executions
it's true,
that-
you're right.
You don't find it.
Lab and all that good stuff.
Well, it's drywall, but it's plastic.
Absolutely.
So they do a much better.
I mean, I'm not